on the society to transform by science and technology because of his successive historical periods, but later Calvin inspired the Reformation, Luke, Leibniz, Voltaire, and Rousseau the Enlightenment. Modern thought and most dependent on the influence of Carl Darwin's accomplishments were so many and diverse that it is useful to distinguish three fields to which he made a major contribution: evolutionary biology, the philosophy of science, and the modern. Although it will be focusing on his last domain for the sake of completeness, it will put forth a short overview of his contribution, particularly as they inform his later ideas to the first two. Darwin founded a new branch of life science, which is evolutionary biology. Four of his contributions to evolutionary biology are especially important as they held considerable sway beyond that discipline. The first is non-constancy of species, or the modern conception of evolution. The second is nation of branches evolution, implying the common descent of all species of living things on Earth from a single unique origin. Until 1859, all evolutionary proposals, such as that of naturalism, Baptist Lamarck instead endorsed linear evolution, a technological march toward greater perfection that had been on Aristotle's concept of Slalator, the chain of being Darwin's father, noted that evolution must be gradual with no major breaks of this continuous finally be proposed but that mechanics of evolution was natural. The early life Darwin was born on February 12, 1809 in the tiny merchant town of Shrewsbury, England, a child of wealth and privilege who loved to explore nature. Darwin was the second youngest of six kids. The education he started on October 1825 at age 16. Darwin enrolled at University of Edinburgh along with his brother Erasmus. 2 years he became a student of Christ's College of Cambridge. His father hoped he would follow in footsteps and become a medical doctor, but the sight of blood made Darwin queasy. His father suggested he study to become a person instead, but Darwin was the more inclined to study natural history. Theory of evolution. Darwin's theory of evolution declared that species survive through a process called natural selection, where those that successfully adapted or evolved to meet the changing requirements of their natural habitat thrive and reproduce, while those species failed to evolve and reproduce died off. Darwin's theory of evolution and the process of natural selection later became known as simple as Darwinism. This is the question about Darwinian's revolution and why is it important for philosophers. These are the questions tackled in this element. In four sections, the topics covered are the story of revolution, the question of whether and really was a revolution, the nature of revolution and the implication for philosophy, both epistemology and this is the Darwinian revolution. The impossibility of conceiving that this grand and wondrous universe with our conscious selves Aristotle's chance seems to me the chief argument for the existence of God. Theological and scientific commentary on Darwinian's origin of species. To suppose that the eye, with all its imitable contrivance for adjusting the focus to different distances, for admitting different amount of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree. As by this theory, innumerable transitional forms must be existed, why do we not find them embedded in the crust of the earth? Why is all nature not confession indeed of being as we see them, well defined, species. Geological research does not yield the intimately fine gradation between past and present species required by the theory, and this is the most obvious of the many objections which may be argued against it. The explanation, however, in the extreme expectation of the geologic record. This is the Darwinian history of evolution by natural selection. Evolution means change in population over time. Charles Darwin was the first to propose a flexible mechanism for evolution. It's called natural selection. Our reflection about Darwinians is I learned from Darwinian's theory the value of exploration. When most people think about innovation today, they usually think about things like agility and entrepreneurship. And evolution reflection is the process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed and diversified from earlier forms during the history of Earth. The Charles Darwin theory of evolution states that evolution happens by natural selection.